Hello friends, I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. And today we're going to talk about a book. This is The Outsider from Stephen King. Not to be confused with The Outsiders, which I found when I tried to Google stuff about this book. A lot of it was referencing The Outsiders, which is fantastic, but you know, whatever. Um, this book and the next book we'll likely review, I'm not positive on that, but I think so, called Holly, are the two books that I actually wanted to read of Stephen King's this year because they are parallel. There are a lot of parallels between those books and what I'm working on, the story that I'm working on. Particularly, they both feature a sort of paranormal event. They both feature skeptical characters and a non-skeptic. There's a lot. There's a lot I wanted to see how Stephen King handles certain things. So this character Holly, who is the titular character, we learned that word the other day, of the book Holly, is a major supporting character in The Outsider. She comes in, I don't know, about a third of the way into the book or something like that. And she kind of stays for the rest of the book. It is, so I read the Bill Hodges trilogy, which we did 2 videos on, and I was very disappointed in. I felt like it was very blah. And very much just not the Stephen King that I'm used to reading. And then reading this, I can tell you that this is the Stephen King that I'm used to reading. Like, this came after, obviously, but this is back to the normal level of Stephen King's work, which if you read Stephen King, it is very strong character. Everybody, every name that gets put on a page, that person feels alive. That person doesn't just serve a purpose to tell a story. That person is a person that has a story, that has a whatever. And so that stuff is there. Lots of filler. That's one of the things that I've often talked about King, that like it or not, his books are very inflated. He has a whole lot of details that often are not necessary at all, but they fill out the characters, they fill out the world, they make everything feel alive, and it feels good. Stephen King is not an author that summarizes a lot. He'd rather just spell it out, in detail. Here's what's going on. Instead of summarizing. And if you like that sort of thing, great. What ends up happening? That's how this book opens, just like most, and then near that third act, or the end of the second act there's these short snip, everything gets condensed, then things get summarized, then we push the pacing, then we force the ending, then we just blow through it. But this one, the ending was not forced. The ending was fairly predictable. When you started to get near the ending, you knew how the book was going to end. Or you at least, maybe not the actual moment of time, but you knew the shape of the ending of the book. And so it ended very predictably. It felt like a good close. It felt comfortable. And it's a very good book. I very much enjoyed it. I'm interested in seeing the miniseries. I think there was a miniseries on HBO or something like that. Does it say on the cover? I already got rid of it, didn't I? Yeah, I think there was a miniseries. I don't know where that miniseries is, but it's a very good King book. And so from this point forward, we'll talk a little bit of spoilers. So if you don't want to hear those spoilers, you should go away. Watch a different video. I want to know where worms come from. There are so many versions of this character. This outsider character is a shape-shifting creature that steals sadness and kills and eats flesh and that sort of stuff. But I feel like the sack of flesh that harbors a mass of worms is something that I've seen lots of times, many times in many different genres. Where does that come from? Because in searching, in trying to find an origin for the massive worm story, I haven't been able to find anything. And I've actually had a hard time figuring out how to even Google up like other stories that are masses of worms parading as a person. I know I've seen it. I know I've read it. I know that it's been in comic books that I've experienced or whatever. But I feel like the sack of worms thing is just a very common thing or a common-ish thing that I'd like to know more about. I feel like it has an origin. I just don't know what it is. I felt that it was very interesting that this character or this creature was based on some native traditions, like some Mexican traditions, coupled with some Eastern traditions, or not Eastern, maybe Eastern and West. Like it was very well tied together to make this creature feel like it had come out of folktales and exists because it exists, or those folktales exist because it exists, or whatever. I like the open-ended question that the creature asks, have you met another like me? Suggesting that there are others, or depending on how you read that, suggesting that the creature is the only one it's aware of, and it would have loved to have met other creatures like itself. I'm not sure, but I felt that was a fun way to end things. The Holly character, she's definitely not in this book. So if you don't know the Holly character, she is autistic. She is a 40-something autistic woman. And in a lot of her, the Bill Hodges series, she is autistic. In this book, not so much. She says a couple of things that seem a little bit off. And she backs out of social situations and kind of hides behind herself. But other than that, it doesn't read as kind of antisocial or disassociated as she did in the Bill Hodges trilogy. She feels a lot more normal in this book. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think that some people love this character because of her quirks. Her quirks are definitely still there. She still has them, but she seems much more subdued in this book. Whatever. The mystery was great. I liked that we employed a whole host of characters to investigate various arms of this instead of the main character trying to do all of the things. We brought in a huge cast to help investigate various pieces of the puzzle, and I felt like the puzzle came together in a nice way. And that's the main reason I wanted to read it. I wanted to see what the puzzle was and how we got there, to kind of help me formulate what the puzzle is in my story and how I'm going to get there. So, The Outsider, Stephen King, I can definitely recommend it. If you like King, you'll like this book. If you like horror, it's not really a horror book. I mean, there's some horrific moments. There's definitely some scenes of gore and whatnot. But for the most part, it's scary in the idea of it more than it is on the page. And so there's that. I would say that in terms of things that King has written, this is much less frightening than a lot. But it does have a sort of a psychological effect. It had a psychological effect on me as I was reading it, which is fun. It is an investigation story ultimately, similar to the Bill Hodges trilogy, but not quite as cop-y, even though the main character is actually a detective, like a for-real detective. So, good book. I'm excited to read Holly and see where she goes, but I don't know when I'm going to get to that. I've read a whole bunch of short stories since then, which I probably will not be doing reviews on, unless you're super interested in hearing about them. So let me know about that in the comments. Have you been reading anything lately? I'd love more recommendations for books. Let me know. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word to sound smart is tome. It's a noun meaning a larger scholarly book. She carries a book, but it is not the tome of the ancient wisdom. The pages, I imagine, are the blank pages of the unwritten volume of the new. Hilda Doolittle, American poet and memoirist. Tome, T-O-M-E. I mean, I think we all know what a tome is. But that, I guess that's a poem because there's little slashes. It doesn't read like a poem or even, it's just a sentence. Like, okay.